Hello Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we will be discussing the Toronto Raptors' victory over the LA Clippers, but before we do that, we've got to talk about the ramifications, the fallout from the Luka Doncic trade and the Zach LaVine / De'Aaron Fox trades that happened since my last video, and obviously those are let's just talk about the Doncic trade here for a moment. One of the biggest trades in any sport in my lifetime, and I'm pretty old, so this was a shocking, insane trade. And we don't need to get into that. I'm sure that you've thought about it and heard all those takes about what were the Mavericks thinking, etc., etc. So I'll spare you that, but we will kind of talk about the downstream implications of that. And we'll also talk about the Zach LaVine trade and some other trades that were made and how they impact the Toronto Raptors. So first of all, two teams, the Lakers and the Mavericks, made big trades, and as a result, the composition of their teams have changed as well. Doncic is a backcourt player, AD is a frontcourt player, they have swapped places, and now both of those teams are probably looking to make additional trades in order to fix the rosters and make the rosters make a bit more sense. So first of all, let's talk about what could happen vis-a-vis the Raptors and the Lakers. So they sent out Anthony Davis being, a consistent all-NBA big man, and they don't really have a frontcourt player that could play next to LeBron, Doncic, Austin Reeves, all of those guys. And they're probably looking at the centers who are on the market. Vucevic is a guy, Jakob Poeltl is a guy as well. I think that Poeltl would probably fit with them because they've got a lot of outside shooting. They don't really need another floor spacer in Vucevic. Poeltl would probably be a guy that they would be interested in getting. He could help run their offense. He could, set screens for Luka Doncic, all of that sort of stuff. They'd probably be pretty interested in adding him. For the Raptors, the Lakers still have some pretty good assets. I mean, they didn't give up a lot in terms of draft capital to get Luka Doncic, which is insane to me. So they still have a lot of first-round picks. They could probably still afford to give some up. And the deal that I thought about was Rui Hachimura plus Christian Wood, who, isn't really a factor. He's just in there for salary. Traded along with the Lakers' 2026 first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl. And there are two reasons why the Raptors would be interested in doing this. Rui Hachimura is a stretch forward. He can shoot the three. He can score. He's just a good all-around player at the forward spot. And then they'd be getting a first-round pick. And I think that this would be fine for the Toronto Raptors. I would be okay with this. They would have to shore up their center spot for the future, but I have a trade that might be able to accomplish that, and it's with the Dallas Mavericks. So the Dallas Mavericks, they're in the opposite situation now. They have too many bigs. They have Daniel Gafford. They have Derek Lively, they have Omax, they have Anthony Davis, they have a lot of bigs. So the deal that I thought up was a deal that allows them to get off of Daniel Gafford's contract while also getting a player that can help them win this season, because I think this season is really important to them. They want to prove the doubters wrong. They want to go deep into the playoffs. Bruce Brown is a quality NBA role player, 3-and-D, jack-of-all-trades guy. And so the deal is Daniel Gafford, who has 1 year remaining on his deal, and I like him as a player, and Quentin Grimes, who is a solid role player for Bruce Brown. So this would accomplish two things for the Mavericks. They get off of Daniel Gafford's contract, and they get a good role player in return. This is a little kind of sketchy for them, just because Quentin Grimes is a good role player as well. This would mainly be made for getting off of Daniel Gafford's deal. For the Raptors, they would be getting Daniel Gafford, who I think is a good big. I think he's just a solid NBA big. He's still pretty young. He's just simply too low in the pecking order for the Mavericks. He is worse than Lively, he's worse than AD, and they've already got a prospect in Omax. And they even have a break in case of emergency center, Dwight Powell, who we know is a pretty good player, the Canadian national team starting center. He's a decent player that can play even if they have some injury issues. So this would just simply be a buy low opportunity for the Raptors. They would get a big man who I think is a pretty good traditional big man. He's a little undersized, but he is a dog. I mean, if you've watched him play, you understand he's a great offensive rebounder. He has a lot of skills. He's not as talented offensively as Jakob Poeltl. He doesn't have all of the tools that Jakob Poeltl has, but he is an energy guy with size and can bring toughness to the Raptors front court. So if they made the Poeltl trade, this would be an interesting trade to think about as well. Quentin Grimes, they would be getting his bird rights, and I like Quentin Grimes as a role player. I think we all remember the "you is not him" moment with Scotty Barnes, but he is kind of him as a role player. I do like him. He can shoot, he can play defense, so that would be a good deal for the Raptors' future. So those are the two trades that I came up with regarding the Toronto Raptors and the Luka Doncic fallout between the Mavericks and the Lakers. There's some other stuff to talk about, which we'll go over briefly. First of all, the news out of the Warriors camp and between them and Jimmy Butler and the Heat is that Jimmy Butler says that he's not interested in re-signing with the Warriors. It seems like he's hell-bent on going to the Phoenix Suns. And what this means is that there was a rumored Wiggins to Toronto deal that gained some traction with Bruce Brown being used as trade ballast to go to the Heat. And that probably would not happen if Jimmy Butler is not interested in re-signing with the Warriors, because he does have a player option for next season on his contract, which adds a lot of uncertainty. So they probably wouldn't want to give up Andrew Wiggins unless they were confident that they were going to be getting Jimmy Butler for at least a couple of seasons, because I think Wiggins is a good player, and I would welcome him on the Raptors. I don't know how good it would be for the tank this season, but I do like him even though he's being paid quite a bit of money. So that's an interesting little wrinkle there. Thought I'd share that with you. Another trade that happened was that the Clippers traded PJ Tucker and some second-round picks for Drew Eubanks. And Drew Eubanks is a bench big, which I think maybe takes them out of the race for Chris Boucher. I know that there was some purported interest there. They were perhaps interested in trading for Chris Boucher, but now that they've added a bench big, they might be less incentivized to do that, even though Chris Boucher is kind of a forward, kind of a scorer, kind of a different player. I just think that they've spent a couple of assets to go out and get a guy who's going to be in the rotation, so they're probably not as interested in Chris Boucher as they once were, but who knows. Last but not least, there was that other trade that probably would have been, the big news if it weren't for the Luka Doncic trade, which was the De'Aaron Fox going to the Spurs, Zach LaVine going to the Sacramento Kings, and then some, role players going to the Bulls. So the Bulls are kind of at a crossroads right now. I know people are saying that, okay, now they can tank. There are two conflicting things going on here. So first of all, Zach LaVine has been traded, which makes them worse. So yes, they might be looking to tank. However, they got their own pick back, and that pick was top 10 protected, which means that they get to keep it even if they're mediocre, and we know what the Bulls love to do. But I do think this points towards them maybe not being as competitive, but I don't think that getting their pick back means anything here. It looks like the Bulls are looking to blow it up completely, and they aren't a very good trading partner with the Toronto Raptors. In fact, they are kind of the competition for the Toronto Raptors. They have a lot of guards. The Raptors have a lot of guards. They have a big man on the market. The Toronto Raptors have some bigs on the market as well. So they aren't very good trading partners, and they're looking to kind of move in the same direction as the Raptors, which is kind of in a rebuilding mode. Okie dokie. Those are the little nuggets. There was a seismic shift in the NBA, but we're going to narrow our focus a little bit. We are going to be talking about the game that happened yesterday between the Toronto Raptors and the LA Clippers, and it was a really fun game to watch. I was in attendance, went with the family and some other families, and we sat in the nosebleeds, and we had a really good time. It was very fun. And this was a team win, a team effort. There were a lot of really good performances here, so it is kind of tough to pick who I think, were the best players in the game. We are going to go with number one. We'll start off with RJ Barrett. And RJ Barrett had 20 points on 21 shots. You would think, okay, well, not very efficient. He was 2 of 6 from 3, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and we'll get to that, and 3 turnovers. So I think this was one of RJ's most complete games on both ends, and he didn't have a great shooting night, but I think he was effective on the offensive end. I think that he was doing a great job passing the ball. He looked like he was getting into the paint quite a bit. He didn't shoot any free throws, which is surprising to me, but on the defensive end is where I want to give him his flowers, because he was going up against, Raptors legend Kawhi Leonard, and he held his own and then some. So Barrett had 3 steals this game, 2 of them coming against Kawhi Leonard, and he was one of the primary defenders on Kawhi Leonard. I mean, they switched up a little bit as they like to do, and Kawhi Leonard had a pretty miserable night on offense. He scored 14 points on 18 shots and had 4 turnovers. And I think that RJ just did a really good job. As I've mentioned in the past, when you say somebody is bad at something, it varies from game to game. And also, they're not bad at all aspects of everything. Usually they're good at certain things, bad at other things. One of the good things about RJ Barrett is that I think he's a pretty good primary defender when his man has the ball. And he showed that last night by, moving his feet, playing with his hands, being active on defense with Kawhi Leonard, tracking him around the court. I think when he's dialed in and he's looking at a player and really trying to shut them down, he can be effective. We've gone into his help defense a ton of times, but I didn't notice any big problems there. So, I just think that he had a really effective game. RJ Barrett did, and he was probably the best player in the starting lineup. So really want to give him his flowers there. And next up, this is a big surprise. He hasn't been this high in the pecking order since, the beginning of the season. This was Grady Dick's best game in a long time, maybe months. He had 18 points on 9 shots. He was 2 of 2 from 3. Hallelujah. He needed that. 2 free throws, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 0 blocks, 0 turnovers, and some sick dunks. He had a poster dunk. He caught an alley-oop and went reverse with it. Just what a great game. And then on defense, I thought he was playing pretty well. He was Xing out very well. He was contesting on the perimeter. He stayed in front of James Harden in certain circumstances. James Harden drove past him a couple of times, but it was after some pretty good footwork. And here's the thing is that again, just like RJ Barrett, if they're bad on defense or they're bad on offense, a lot of the time it's one element of their game that is not as developed as the other parts. And with Grady Dick, it's always been about his screen navigation. That has been where he is not as good. Like in certain circumstances, I think that he is good in terms of isolation defense, in terms of closing out on the perimeter. I think that it's hard to be a good ISO player in the NBA, and he can make it kind of difficult, especially when he has some help on the back end. So I think that this was a really good game for Grady Dick. He was just very effective on offense, and then on defense, he was doing enough. So, got to give this guy his flowers. Really impressed with his performance. And Scotty Barnes, listen, everybody in the starting lineup played really well. So this was a team win effort, and so this isn't like shouldn't be seen as slagging Scotty Barnes because he also had a good game. Let's talk about his night. 15 points on 6 of 12 shooting. He was 2 of 2 from 3, and both were pull-up threes. Usually I'm not a fan of that with Scotty Barnes. One was a late shot clock situation. I am okay with that. If you have to, you got to do it. The other one was a little earlier in the shot clock. He made it anyway, so I'm not usually a fan of those shots. But, shout out to him. He made both of those pull-up threes. Very happy with that. He had 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He is a very good ball mover, very good. He was the guy that was setting guys up for those cuts. A lot of backdoor cuts were a result of Scotty Barnes' vision. He had an excellent pass along the baseline when he got cut off. He kind of threaded the needle along the baseline, and it resulted in an open corner 3. He only had 1 turnover, and he was playing really good defense, especially that help defense that we love to see from him, where he's helping guard the basket along with Jakob Poeltl. Why don't we get to Jakob Poeltl? Because he also had a good game. Double-double, so he had 10 points on 4 of 9 shooting. He was 2 of 2 from the free throw line. He had 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 4 turnovers, and statistically doesn't look like a good night. He was great defensively, very good defensively. So there were 2 elements here. The first is Ivica Zubac, who is one of the better centers in the NBA, very solid traditional center who can score in the post. He's a bruiser. He likes to carve out space. And Jakob Poeltl did a really good job of playing physically with him and not giving him any offensive rebounds. In fact, he kept Zubac off of the O-glass completely. He had 0 offensive boards. You love to see that. And then he was contesting all of his shots around the basket. So especially in the pick and roll, where James Harden, Zubac, that is a big part of their offense. They love that pick and roll. Poeltl did a really good job of covering that pick and roll, making sure that James Harden wasn't getting any easy looks at the basket, making sure that he couldn't get the ball easily to Ivica Zubac. Zubac scored a bunch in garbage time at the end of the game, so his stats look pretty good. But I'm just going to tell you right now that I think that Jakob Poeltl played him very well. And then defensively as well, you can't just look at the center stats on the other team to see if your center played good defense, because they are the primary help defender, and he was pretty much doing it all on switches. He was moving his feet, he was Xing out, getting out to shooters and contesting shots there. He was helping out around the basket, contesting shots, and he was doing a great job on the board. So really good performance from him. He did his job very well. Next up, we'll go to the last guy, and even Emmanuel Quickley had a good game. And I was kind of scared because he left the game. The clock was ticking on his minutes because he has a minutes restriction. And so after that minutes restriction was up, He couldn't play anymore, so he went to the dressing room. I think people were worried that he was injured. It was reported on Twitter like, oh, he's gone to the dressing room. You think the worst, but I haven't heard anything about an injury, so, crossing my fingers, hoping that's not the case. But he had a good game. 11 points, 6 assists, no rebounds, no steals, no blocks, no turnovers. He was 1 of 2 from 3, hit that pull-up. He drew some fouls. He was 4 of 4 from the line. He was helping run the show. If he played a full game, he might have been the best player in the game. He was really just that effective, and his ability to hit shots off of the dribble gives the Raptors a really more dynamic offense. The Raptors really like to run plays, pick and rolls, screen plays, dribble handoffs, all of these kind of complex actions where they have a lot of off-ball movement, and I like that. But one thing that can just add a little bit of, spice to that is a guy who can generate a shot off of the dribble, a guy who other teams really have to zero in on if they want to stop him, if they want him not to get cooking from 3, and Quickley adds that. So I'm a fan of Immanuel Quickley. I have just been disappointed with his injuries. And last night, knock on wood, hopefully everything is okay there. The minutes restriction thing, I get it. Want to keep him healthy. We'll just see how things progress. Off of the bench, we got to talk about Ochai Agbaji. Ochai Agbaji won the chain this game as the best player, and I kind of agree with them. RJ Barrett was, one of the best offensive players this game. He helped the Raptors' wheels turn on offense. Ochai Agbaji was a game changer on defense, especially his defense on James Harden. James Harden had a good statistical night, 25 points, but on 20 shots, he missed a lot of shots. He was 2 of 9 from 3. He was not getting a lot of looks. He did go to the free throw line, as he does a lot. I feel like Ochai Agbaji had just a really, really solid defensive performance with James Harden. He blocked his shot. He was just staying attached, contesting without fouling, moving his feet, being in the right place at the right time, making sure that if he did get an advantage, it wasn't a sizable one, so the help defense could assist. Just did a really good job. Really, really, really good job. And then on the offensive end, he was 5 of 5 from the field. This is not a defense-only situation. He had 12 points on 5 of 5 shooting. It was 2 of 2 from 3. Love to see that. They really need his shooting. He had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks. What a game. Just a really, really good performance on both sides of the ball. This guy is coming on, becoming that 3-and-D player that the Toronto Raptors really need, and really any team could use this guy. Any team. He can guard up and down the lineup. He can grab rebounds. He can play defense. He can block shots, hit threes. Love to see it. And he was a major reason why they won this game. Jacoby Walter also had a great game. 10 points on 11 shots. That being said, I'm okay. I mean, he's getting shots up, and it looked good. The process looked good. He was 2 of 6 from 3, so, not an amazing shooting night, but he did hit some impressive shots. He had 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 0 blocks, 1 turnover, and played some solid defense, and had some really nice highlights. He had a dunk over Ivica Zubac. Well, this is what I want to see from him. I want to see high minutes. 21 minutes is good for him. I want to see production. I want to see confidence. I want to see defense. We're getting to start to see that. Really impressed with his performance. And then the 2 guys that were not available. So this is very bizarre. I'm not sure what happened in the Bulls game, why Chris Boucher did not play that game, but he came back. He was good. 9 points in 16 minutes on 3 of 5 shooting. He was 2 of 4 from 3. He rescued a play where it kind of looked like it was going sideways. He just kind of snatched the ball from Immanuel Quickley and jacked up a 3, and it went in. You just have to you're along for the ride when you're watching Chris Boucher. He just kind of does whatever he wants to, and most of the time it works, so you can't be too unhappy with it. So I think he had a good game. Kelly Olynyk also played. He had more of a muted game, although his defense is he does some good things on defense, and he did do a good job of boxing out in certain circumstances with Zubac. He was one of the reasons Zubac didn't have any offensive rebounds, because he can kind of lay the lumber on guys, push them under the basket. I thought he had a pretty good game. Bruce Brown, he had 6 points on 1 of 4 shooting, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and good defense, and just, being a good role player. I liked what I saw from him. And yeah, it was a great game to watch. Really had a fun time with the family. The Clippers did not look very good, but the Raptors are playing really strong defense. That's what the takeaway here is, that they played a good offensive game where they were creating good looks. That's what you like to see. I mean, a lot of the time it comes down to shot quality. And the Raptors were consistently getting better shots than the LA Clippers. And then in terms of the 4 factors, so you can't just look at shooting, you also have to look at rebounding and turnovers. The rebounding and turnovers were almost equal on both sides. So if you keep the rebounding and turnovers the same as your opponent, and then you shoot better than them, as long as there isn't a massive free throw differential, you're going to win that game. It was a true team effort. This was all of the players on the team playing well and playing as a unit. And when you're playing a team that's very good, the Clippers have been good this season, you need to have all hands on deck, even if you're playing at home, where the Raptors have been actually shockingly good recently. They've won 8 of their past 10, a lot of those being at home. Yeah, the tank is struggling right now. And with the trade deadline looming, we don't really know what the plan is. Like, who's going to be here, who's not. Everything's up in the air, so it's hard to determine what the plan is going forward. Next up, the Toronto Raptors play the New York Knicks in Toronto. Listen, if you were to ask me 10 games ago whether the Raptors would win or lose this game, I would say lose 100%. They've already lost to the Knicks at home. They've looked, hopeless at times, but they're playing super well recently. They are at home. Who knows what's going to happen, especially with the trade deadline, but this will be an interesting game. I'm very excited to watch this one. The Raptors have been, at least from an entertainment standpoint, have been putting on very good shows recently. So anyway, that is the episode. I mean, the Luka Doncic trade, you could talk about that in the comments, but what are you thinking about the Toronto Raptors situation? Have things changed appreciably? What do you think about the Jimmy Butler news? Do you think that that's just a red herring? Let me know here in the comments, and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. I love talking to Toronto Raptors fans. We are the best. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe. Really helps the channel grow, really helps this content reach other Raptors fans like you. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.